Ladies and gentlemen, this video was titled New York City Before Drill. Let's jump straight into this and see what he's talking about, man. As y'all know, I'm from New York, so I really want to see what he has to say about the time before New York drill music took over. With that being said, make sure you like, comment, subscribe if you're new, and follow the Twitch link in the description. As you can see, I'm live. With that being said, though,
An Italian named Giovanni was the first European to sail into New York Harbor, and although he encountered 30 canoes full of the native Lenape tribe, he ignored them and claimed the area for France. The French paid for his boat, so it was only right, I guess. He also thought the Hudson River was a lake. He continued up the East Coast planting the French flag before going back to France, but he wasn't satisfied. So he came back to explore the Caribbean, but ended up being killed and eaten by the Carib people near the island of Guadalupe, not far from Haiti and the Dominican Republic. Then a Spanish fleet, led by a Portuguese man, sailed up the Hudson, didn't see anyone, so they just tried to name it San Antonio, and then the Spanish just also kind of forgot about it. Then 80 years later, an Englishman named Henry Hudson was, to be honest, looking for a cheaper way to get to the Middle East by sailing around Canada for some reason, which, in case you're wondering, would have never worked because it was frozen most of the year, but he actually ended up in what's now the Hudson River. And the natives probably wondering why white people kept coming to New York.
y'all, I'm not gonna lie to y'all. All the people that colonized the parts of the United States and did this, that, and the third, and didn't care about the Native Americans or black people or the Moors and stuff like that, all those people that colonized areas and thought they was where they was and wasn't really there, them niggas is idiots. I'm not gonna lie, Christopher Columbus did not know where he was at when he first colonized it. You see what I'm saying? Literally, Hudson, all those niggas he just named before did not know where they was at for real. Why? Why don't, like, these niggas didn't understand geography, my nigga? They was just sailing and thought, oh yeah, I'm going the right way, and never was going the right way. That's so crazy to me.
York planting flags and leaving, probably just ignored him. And Henry probably would have come back, but he was trying to convince his crew that they could totally save him. He's probably wondering why white people kept coming to New York planting flags and leaving, probably just ignored him. And Henry probably would have come back, but he was trying to convince his crew that they could totally sail through the Arctic to get to the Middle East, but they didn't feel like dying, so they just threw him overboard and he was never seen again.
Wait,
and this
what?
is where a Dominican man named Juan set foot in modern day Manhattan. He saw the last flag left there by Henry, which was a Dutch flag, by the way, and just kind of told the natives, yeah, I work for the Dutch. You want to trade some fur? And they say, yeah. Thus, Juan the Dominican became the first real New Yorker. Well, I guess New Netherlander, James, Duke of York, who later became King James, who New York was actually named after, wasn't born yet, but you get what I'm saying. Now, Juan did kind of work for the Dutch, only in the sense that when they showed up, he could speak the native Lenape language, and they said, hey, Juan, you want to be our translator? And he said, yeah. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is, I didn't give New York a proper video, nowhere near the credit that the Big Apple deserves. The city's so nice they named it twice, remember? And fun fact, Gotham, you know, the city from Batman that's obviously based on New York, is a much older name than any comic book. The name Gotham actually comes from a joke some New Yorkers made in a comedy from the early 1800s, which was based on the legend of the wise men of Gotham, called
How is he doing this research? What do you research to figure these things out?
wise because they played stupid. You see, in England back in the day, any road the king traveled on had to be made into a public highway. The king was on his way to Gotham, a village in Nottinghamshire, England, but the people of Gotham didn't want a public highway running through their village, so when the king's royal messenger arrived to announce the king's planned visit, the people of Gotham just pretended to be too stupid to understand what they were trying to say. Thus the king, King John, decided to avoid Gotham altogether. But moving on to the importance of New York as a trendsetter, unfortunately, drill music spread into other cities just makes it look to outsiders like other cities are copying Chicago, when in fact, Chicago used to copy New York. I had a cousin who had the chance to travel the world at a young age back in the 90s and early 2000s, and he noted that no matter where he went, the accent most people faked in order to look cool was the famous New York accent, which just might be the best one we have to offer in America, honestly. The entire Midwest followed the Timberland wave, which they still follow today, and we know—
Thank you, fuck Lil Yachty. Fuck Lil Yachty. What am I deaf? Fuck Lil Yachty, my nigga. No, like for real. Lil Yachty literally went on a platform and said that New York has had no trends for the past like 20, 30 years. He's the man that's always wearing shorts and Timbs. He's always wearing baggy clothes. He's always wearing baggy jeans and Timberlands, my nigga, and fitted hats. So what are we talking about right now? It's fuck Lil Yachty. Word to bro. What are we talking about right now? What are we talking about, bro? That just pissed me off. Like, come on, man. I'm glad somebody understands. I'm glad somebody understands.
in America, honestly. The entire Midwest followed the Timberland wave, which they still follow today, and we know where the popularity of Timbs came from. Not sure if Timberlands are as popular in other countries, but besides the kicks, did you know that as many as 800 languages are spoken within New York City alone, making it the most linguistically diverse city in the entire world? Yeah, B, my son speak all kind of languages, you heard? I'm sorry. It's also ironic that despite being the most diverse city in America, it's also the only one of the 5 largest cities to have an English name. Los Angeles obviously being Spanish for the Angels. Chicago comes from the French trying to pronounce the Miami, Illinois tribe's name for the area, Secaqua, which the French just kind of butchered and called it Chicago. It's the name of a type of vegetable, by the way. Houston, which comes from the lowland Scottish name for the original Houston in Scotland, named after Texas legend Sam Houston's ancestor, Sir Hugh of Scotland. And Phoenix, which is just the Greek word for a bird that bursts into flames before being reborn in the ashes. But back when the Italians still ran Chicago, New York was busy creating this thing called hip-hop, which started with freestyle in their block parties, which were also invented in New York City. Obviously, other countries were doing this before New York, but during the First World War, the New Yorkers would get together on each block to sing and hold a parade for each guy on the block that had gone off to war. Now, how beautiful is that? Technically, holding a block party was illegal at the time, but the cops were just New Yorkers too, so of course they looked the other way, and thus it became a tradition. But when it comes to crime in New York, long before drill, things were going on in New York City.
Yo, his whole vibe just changed. Yo, what the hell? Yo, I got it. He went from so lively to just like, yo, I ain't gonna lie, it's about to get heavy.
Go at the time, but the cops were just New Yorkers too, so of course they looked the other way, and thus it became a tradition. But when it comes to crime in New York, long before drill, things were going on in New York City that made all those 90s hood movies look like fiction. Gentrification has dramatically changed the city, but today we still see the after effects of all the gang violence that plagued it 20 years ago. And things still tend to go on in the same neighborhoods. For instance, Sev Side, where K Flock is from, was controlled by the mob in the 70s and 80s. It is Little Italy after all, but once the mob migrated to around Morris Park in the 90s, the East Homicide Brim moved in, before 5'9 Brim, and so on until it was Sev Side 700 DOA. Now obviously I'm glossing over a lot with a city as big as New York, but you need a 10-hour documentary to cover everything, and you still might miss an entire decade. But one thing is for certain, no city in America has had anywhere near the turnaround New York City had. But since 1985, the Bronx has consistently been the most dangerous borough. Not only that, the poorest congressional district in the U.S. out of all 435 districts. It got so bad at one point that the people in the Bronx were burning down vacant properties just to force the city to build new housing, which they eventually did with the South Bronx.
I don't know if y'all ever seen, I think it was called The Get Down on Netflix. I don't know if y'all ever seen that, but that's literally like a great representation of where New York, where the Bronx were at during the 80s. Because while hip-hop was being created and the D-boys or the B-boys, whatever it was called, were coming up and they was hosting these parties with these DJs and these MCs and stuff like that, stuff like this was also going on. So while hip-hop was being created, houses were being burned down. The Bronx was super poor. There was a lot of vacant houses, a lot of houses that were just, it was just a lot of rubble and a lot of debris everywhere. Like, it was bad, chat. And I still don't think the Bronx has fully recovered since the 80s. I don't. I genuinely don't. And especially when crack also gets into the mix. Because that just makes everything even worse. That causes a lot more homeless, a lot more addicts, a lot more crime, and things of that nature. Yeah, so that's actually fake crazy.
Bronx specifically being the poorest area in the entire city. Harlem is still the borough that you're most likely to get robbed in, although prostitution is a problem here as well. Honestly, brothels popping up seems to be a big problem all over New York, and I'm not sure why, but I did see that rent cost over $3,000 a month, which at that point I'll just be homeless. Brooklyn has changed a lot over the years, of course. It was even memed as if it's no longer dangerous, but I definitely wouldn't say that. And to an outsider, NYC can simultaneously look like the most fun and dangerous city you can visit, and to an extent, you'd be right. But like any city, you can avoid crime by simply paying attention. But of course, with somewhere as busy as New York, you'd have to also be accustomed to not getting overstimulated. Because if you're not from there, there's a good chance that you're probably moving in slow motion compared to a local. But that's fine. Like anywhere, as a tourist, you're far less likely to encounter any crime than someone who lives there, and obviously you don't need to tell a lifelong New Yorker how to survive in New York. I would not recommend driving there under any circumstances though. If you visit, just let a Lyft take you around the city or something, and try not to panic when he starts driving crazy, because it's honestly the only way he's going to be able to get you from point A to B. And New Yorkers get a bad rep for being rude and aggressive, but if you think that, you must not be from a big city. Just go downtown in any major city and walk directly in someone's path. Whether it's a young Dominican kid or an old white lady, they'll both end up cursing at you until you act like you have a brain. It's just the fastest city in America. And growing up there, you have little time for nonsense.
Nah, I'm gonna tell y'all a story, bro. And this didn't make me realize New York niggas was like some of the worst people. This didn't make me realize that. It was just funny. This literally happened yesterday. Literally yesterday. So me and the bros are just chilling on the block, right? And we just talking. This one random shorty pulls up. She goes, yo, what y'all doing? What y'all doing in the city tonight? Y'all got anything going on? Nobody said nothing. We was just silent. Because we was talking. She just came up and said that, right? So we was just silent. Because we didn't want to say nothing. Then she goes, oh, I'm hosting an album release party for blah, 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 blah. Take this QR code. Take this QR code so y'all could get the information. I was like, all right, bet I got you. I'm like, all right, bet I got you. Pulled out my phone, scanned the code, looked at it, put my phone back in my pocket. Have a nice day. I didn't dap her, but I was like, have a nice day. And that was it. Mind you, the bros just stood there looking like she was crazy. Nigga, the bros just stood there and it completely ignored her. And that's what most people do. Most people in New York are gonna ignore you if they do not know you, gang. Regardless if you're speaking to niggas or not. Regardless if you need information. Regardless if you need directions. That's just how certain niggas move. Me, a nigga like me, I'll be nice if I feel like being nice. Like, there was another person was like, yo, am I going in the right direction? Is this over here? Is that over there? And I told them where to go. The bros, they would have just kept walking. You see what I'm saying? So that's just how certain people move. I think that's a city thing or like a person's mindset thing opposed to a New York thing, though. But that is how a lot of niggas in New York move. Because a lot of niggas in New York do not care about other people.
At you until you act like you have a brain. It's just the fastest city in America. And growing up there, you have little time for nonsense. If you get shoulder checked by somebody, it's probably because you're moving too slow. And like any city, this is not the place to be flashy. There's so much going on that you might not even see the guy across the street following you until it's too late. And you also get a healthy mix of London and the US here, meaning that if you pick a fight, you are just as likely to see a gun as you are a machete or even a walking stick. But again, paying attention and minding your own business gets you a long way. And also being nice. Show some respect to the average New Yorker, and you have a friend for life, or at least until you leave. Remember, nothing brings a community together like fearing for your life. I can tell you the one difference when you visit New York versus Chicago, you should probably trust a New Yorker to be actually a reliable guide, as they'll usually be straight up with you. Whereas in Chicago, every block you go on, somebody will tell you, you straight over here with me, ain't nobody gonna touch you, till y'all both get shot. Point being, I love New York, and you should too. If you haven't been here, don't let the small town people on the internet that can't even wrap their head around such a place discourage you from visiting, because I promise it's genuinely the most American experience you can have. If you want to see what the phrase America is a melting pot means, come to NYC. Our country wouldn't have ever been the innovator or trendsetter that it has been historically without a place like New York. So long live Juan the Dominican, long live Henry Hudson, the Harlem Renaissance, and God bless New York, New York. The city's so nice, they did in fact name it twice.
W video, man. W fucking video. Trap University is a legend, bro. I'm not gonna lie. He's a legend. Don't waste money on an Uber. Grab a bacon, egg, and cheese and hop on the train. Our subway is its own borough, for real. Yo, y'all seen them niggas that did a WrestleMania inside of the subway? That's crazy. As a Dominican living in the Dominican Republic, everybody always has something to say about New York. Be it that they know somebody who lives there or haven't been there themselves. So it's cool knowing one of us also had a part of the history in the city. Yeah, I ain't gonna lie, that's crazy though. We at the J5. J5 dropped. Let me know how y'all feel about this down below in the comments. Make sure y'all like, comment, subscribe. Hit the notification bell down below to be notified every time I drop a new video. Shout out Trap University for this video. And let me know how y'all feel about New York, ladies and gentlemen. I'm gonna see y'all soon. I'll see y'all later. Peace.